Hello and welcome to the Rooted Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick, and I have Pastor Stewart with me today. Yeah, man. We've got some cool topics to talk about today, something that's been on both of our hearts here recently. And, these last few episodes have been a little heartfelt. We may end up in that situation here again tonight, but
maybe
before we get too bent out of shape here, I have a icebreaker question for you.
Oh boy, I'm so excited.
All right. Horrible scenario. Life or death situation.
Okay.
You have to choose one child to climb to the top of a mountain to save you. Who are you choosing, and why is it Andy?
Okay, that was funny. So, life or death situation, I have to pick a kid
of
my own to climb up the mountain and save me.
Yes.
First of all, Andy would be too busy sucking her thumb to move up the mountain. I would probably say, well, you said it was Andy. It would definitely not be Andy. It would most likely be, well, I mean, I feel like all my kids could do it. I feel like it'd be Kason though.
I got you.
Kason, because he's at that point of life to where I could tell him to do anything and he's going to do it because he wants dad's approval.
I got you.
That's so in a way, I feel like that's the kid that I would have to say for right now.
I got you.
That's a hard question. Where'd you come up with that?
That one came off the old dome.
Was that at Paxton?
No,
Paxton,
that was a Patrick one. I guess I should give Paxton credit if I make it. But the reason I said why is it Andy, because it seems like in every sermon when you're talking about somebody climbing for the Cheez-Its or the Oreos, it's always her. So
yeah, she was doing that today because the kids are out of school, and so me and Lindsay, we were in the office area at the house, and we walked in to the living room and we didn't see any of the girls. Well, Eden was on top of the kitchen cabinet trying to get a coffee cup for who knows whatever reason. And then Andy had a chair over by the cabinet trying to reach the Oreos on the top. So yeah, she's my mischievous one. Well, very, very mischievous.
I think we've all got one of those, Connor Gray.
Connor said a few things to me at the baseball game, the movies the other day. Like, what did he say? He said a few things. I was trying to remember them. But
bruh, no cap.
No, it was right. Didn't one of y'all's kids tell y'all not to come at all? Because the parents were supposed to go.
Yeah.
Which kid was it?
That was Paxton. He looks at me and goes, "Dad, please don't go. I just want to go with my friends." Oh my God. I was like, all right.
That kind of hurts your ego a little bit as a dad and a mom.
It did, but honestly, it had he was standing there with Kason and a couple of the other boys, and it was one of those time to grow up, don't need dad moments. I was like, all right, I got that.
Well, I wouldn't have gone, no offense, but I wouldn't have gone unless I didn't have to drive the bus.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was great. It was a great movie. The kids had fun. Eden and McCoy got up like 20 or 25 different times during the movie. So it was kind of like, we missed the movie.
Right.
But, it is what it is. We had fun, though. We had a good time.
I know both boys said they had a blast, and we're obviously thankful that y'all allowed them to go, and they had a blast.
Yeah, they had a lot of fun.
Well, you want to dive in?
We can do it.
All right. So tonight's topic that we're trying to get into is church hurt. We've talked about it a little bit on the podcast, and then I feel like there's been not necessarily direct scenarios like that I can just rattle off, but there's been a lot of talk about it, even in like Wednesday nights. I know right now we're studying Revelation with the young adults, but we had an informal get together a couple Wednesday nights ago, and actually you were out there for that one, and I feel like there was a lot of talk about things that had happened to people either in or out of church by Christian people.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just been weighing on my heart recently. I thought it'd be something cool to get into.
Yeah, church hurt is definitely one of the most realest things I think anybody could go through. It's something that a lot of people go through. A lot of people go through it and they don't know really why they go through it. Some people go through it and they don't know that they did go through it. And so, church is supposed to be a hospital for people that need a healing. It's not supposed to be a battleground for people that come here trying to get that help. And so a lot of people are taken advantage of. A lot of people are manipulated. A lot of people are hurt. And, all that stuff's real. But when you get deep down into the issue of church hurt, there's so much I feel like you could talk about. But at the end of the day, you know, and there's both sides to it. There's the real side of it, and then there's the emotional side of it. I'm not saying like, when you talk to counselors, when you talk to people, emotions are a part of a person's life. And so they have to take that into consideration. But at the same time, like they can't let their emotions run them ragged and run them down a road that they're not supposed to be on.
Right.
So church hurt is real, but at the end of the day, we have to decide if we're going to allow that hurt to control us or not.
Right.
And so again, church is a hospital. It's supposed to be a hospital. It's not supposed to be a battleground. But to me, and some people may disagree, but to me, church hurt takes longer to heal than physical hurt does.
Yeah. In a lot of cases, I would agree with you.
So if I fall and I'm on a bike and I'm not wearing a helmet or knee pads or something, and I get a scrape on my knee or hit my head, like eventually it's going to heal and everything's going to be fine. But church hurt, it takes a lot longer to heal because it's deep down on the inside. It's a heart issue. It's a mind issue. It's an emotional issue. And, church hurt takes a lot more time than any other hurt does. And so I think how you respond to the church hurt really makes a difference in how that person is going to succeed or fail in a
Yeah.
way.
And it's funny you say that. I just for the audience, we have decided the topic, but we did not discuss what we were going to talk about as far as like points or anything.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly what you went into, but the side of it that I went into when I was studying for this was like the tips and ways to overcome church
Right.
hurt.
Right.
Not necessarily the different kinds of church
Right.
hurt,
Absolutely.
but
Yeah. Church hurt can look different so many different ways. It could be neglected from making a choice, hey, I wanted to be a part of that process and that decision. It could be you were asked to stop singing because you couldn't sing anymore.
right.
Or church hurt sometimes, y'all. To be honest with you, we have a standard of holiness in our church. And so some people get church hurt because they're told to live a standard that they don't see that's fit or right.
Right.
To me, that's not church hurt. That's just your selfishness leading you down a different path. And so that's another subject for another time. But the reality of this is like before you get into the nuts and bolts of how to get over it, when's the right time to get over it and all that kind of stuff. You have to sit back in your mind and think, okay, God wasn't the one that hurt me. It was people that hurt me.
Yeah.
And so the church is full of people. I remember one time someone told me, and I've quoted this a bunch, and I've lived it. Ministry in church would be so much better without people,
right.
but the church wouldn't be the church without people.
Yeah.
And so when people say, "Well, the church hurt me," the church didn't hurt you. God didn't hurt you. People hurt you.
Yeah.
The church is full of people who are full of sin.
Yep.
So therefore, they're going to do what sinners and fleshly people do. Yep. They're going to hurt you. And we act like the church is supposed to be like this perfect place. And be honest with you, it's a place that needs to be a safe place to where as if someone comes into our church that's homosexual or they're a drunk and they come in acting a certain way, well, what other place would you rather them be?
Yeah.
Someone, I never forget it. A couple one time walked into church and it was a gay couple walked into our church and someone said, "Pastor, I cannot believe that those people came." And I'm like, where else would you want them to go?
Yeah.
Like, this is where they need to be. Because if they go to a church down the road or a church in another community, like they're being pushed away. Well, what is the church for? The church is for sinners.
Yeah.
It's for people to come in. And so and as the church grows, you're going to have more opinions. You're going to have more people that have more things to say, but you can't believe the fact that God is the one that hurt you. God didn't hurt you. People hurt you.
Yeah. And, even more onto that fact, if they're here, we know exactly what they're being taught, as in You know, there may be a church down the road
Yeah.
that embraces that lifestyle, and that's just as dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would rather be in a church that hurts feelings by telling the truth than people that than to be in a church that pleases people, and at the end of the day we hear God say, "Depart from me, I never knew you." I don't want that at all.
Yeah.
And so, the truth of God's word becomes offensive because it's like the Bible says, the word is foolishness to those who don't believe.
Yep.
And so you have to continue preaching the truth no matter what it is. But when you talk about church hurt, yeah, it's real. Man hurt you, God didn't hurt you. But I think when people get hurt, like, you have to process how it is and what happened and what you could get out of it. I know sometimes in the middle of it, you don't want to think about that, but there's, few things that I've wrote down. I'm sure you did. But number one, it's okay to step back. Like, it is okay to step back from what you're doing. I'm not saying to leave that church.
Yeah.
If God wants you to leave that church, then you need to leave that church.
Right.
But again, this goes back to the saying, like I've said many times before, that if everywhere you go stinks, you're always hurt, people always make you upset, maybe the problem is not them or the church, maybe the problem is you. And so I've heard it said before that if everywhere you go stinks, maybe it's time to check your own shoes.
Yep.
And you got to face that reality. So number one, it's okay to step back. It's okay to take time. It's okay to heal. You have to heal, but in the healing process, you can't rush healing.
Right.
You can't add CBD oil to your scars. You can't, add a magic wand, fairy dust to your, broken heart. Like, a broken heart takes time.
Right.
Broken heart takes a lot of time. And, with families that have lost loved ones, and you don't just get over it immediately. Like, it takes a lot of time to get over that stuff.
No, and it's one of the things that I actually wrote down was refers to that. So in Hebrews 10:23-25, it says, "Let us hold on to the confession of our hope without wavering, since he who promised is faithful. And let us watch out for one another to provoke love and good works, not neglecting to gather together as some are in the habit of doing, but encourage each other, and all the more as you see the day approaching." And my notes on that was, even if you've been hurt, you've still got to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
You still have to get around other Christians, fellow Christians, get in the word. You can't heal if you're not getting
Right.
medicine,
Right.
per se. If you're
Absolutely.
not getting the healing touch, I mean, you just can't. So
Yeah.
still get with those people, still get with
Absolutely.
the other Christians, and I'm not necessarily go hang out with the person that hurt you. Like,
Yeah.
that may not be the person you need to go to for healing right out of
Yeah.
the gate.
Yeah.
Find you a group, hopefully still within the same church,
Mhm.
that you can heal with.
Yeah. The thing I think too, when you think about people, I think it's people in general, but especially young people. And I say young people, it's like, I got these young people. They're so, no, they, no, like, I'm not like, I'm still like, I'm there, but, like, I'm getting older. But, like, I think the devil uses people's excuse of church hurt to get them flowing in their emotion. And so if someone's with if a girl is with a boyfriend and it's a bad breakup and they break up, well, and she runs off with another dude, and it's basically like a filler to the void in her life. Like, to me, I'm sitting here going, what good is that doing? And so that's the same thing with church. Is that church hurt, man? We're going to say it over and over again, because when you talk about church hurt, people are like, that don't exist. Well, it does exist.
Yeah.
But also church hurt, I believe that the enemy can use church hurt as an excuse for you to keep missing God's will for your life.
Yes.
And so we can say, hey, I was hurt. I'm not going back to church. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm not going to come back. Well, yeah, you are hurt. Definitely. You are most definitely hurt, but you can't let the devil be the Lord of your hurt.
Yep.
Because if he is the Lord, lowercase l, over your hurt, then he will lead you and guide you in a different direction. But so how do we get to where we need to go? Well, I said it a few Sundays ago in our scars series. Your scars become stories when you make Jesus the Lord of your pain. So how do I get over it? You have to make Jesus the Lord of your pain. You have to invite him in. And so that means that whenever you're sitting here trying to figure out, hey, how do I move on? How do I get past this? What am I supposed to do? You have to invite Jesus into the middle of your pain, because at the end of the day, God cannot heal what you hide.
Yep.
He cannot heal what you hide. And so you think you're playing hide and go seek with the Lord and going, man, I'm going to keep this for my life. Well, you're doing that. You're not hiding anything from God. Number two, you're not the God of your own life. Like, he knows everything. Well, why do I need to tell God if he already knows everything? Well, it's more about us revealing it, because what I've come to figure out is that the more that I open up to my spouse, my wife,
Right.
the better I feel, the better that we are together. And so, you know, back, I guess when we were younger in ministry, I say that very vaguely, that, if someone were to say something or do something or, per se hurt me or say something, I wouldn't tell her, because I would want to guard her
Right.
in the fact, because I didn't want her to have a negative view of that person. But now what I've realized is she is so much more sensible and reliable and firm than I am, to where I can tell her these things and she is the best part of who I am. And involving her is the best part. And so when I sit here thinking like, golly, like what can I do to get through this whole situation? Well, you got to invite Jesus into the middle of everything you're going through, your pain, because when you do that, it turns your scar into a story, and it turns your pain into purpose.
Right. And you saying that, that was actually another one of my points, was focus on your ministry.
Sorry.
So
Apologize.
no, that's awesome. I mean, I'm glad that we're on the same page. And I actually had another Bible verse for it, and that's 2 Timothy 4:5 says, "But as for you, exercise self-control in everything, endure hardships,
Yeah.
and do not work or do the work of an evangelist and fulfill your ministry." So don't stop your ministry due to being hurt. Our
Yeah.
hurt doesn't remove our calling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Often it heals our hurt.
Yeah. And we're in the middle of this church hurt thing talking about right now. A pastor that we have in the Church of God, his name is Joe Dobbins, wrote a book called Hope After Church Hurt. And if anybody's watching this right now, you have been church hurt, I promise you, you need to get this book. And you're like, hey, I can't get this book, can't afford the book. Message our church on Facebook. We'll buy you a copy. We'll get a couple of copies. If anybody wants it, we'll get it out to people that need it. And we want this to be a free resource to people. And he has a lot of great things that are inside of here. It's, he's a pastor in the Church of God in Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri, a great church. But he talks about, how to assess the damage. And then it talks about how to find God's purpose to your healing, and then how you re-engage all of that into your new faith. And so I've read it. And so a lot of things that I'm saying here has come out of that book. But one thing that he does touch in this book, and I've heard him speak on before, is forgiveness. Like, if you want to get out of the church hurt, you've got to forgive. Someone one time, very wise one time, told me that forgiveness is the key to life. If you let unforgiveness settle in your heart, it'll end up being like a cancer to your soul. It'll eat you faster than cancer will to a body. And so, to me, you have unforgiveness in your heart. It leads to bitterness. It leads to anger. It leads to fear. It leads to resentment. It leads to isolation. So, not necessarily in that order,
Right.
but like those things happen after you have church hurt and you have unforgiveness. Well, I'm going to choose not to. I'm going to choose not to forgive this person today. Well, to me, you don't get to pick and choose what fruit of the spirit that you want today.
Right.
All of them are supposed to have some kind of fruition in our life. And so I know we're in a series right now in church and about fruit of the spirit, one
Right.
fruit of the spirit. So I don't know. You have to forgive, because if you don't forgive them, then it leads to a hardened heart. Then it leads to a bitter heart. Then it leads to a malnourished heart. And so,
Well, and there's a point you just made that I think needs to be brought up that doesn't get explained a lot in church, and that's that forgiveness. Sometimes it's not a feeling. Sometimes it's a choice.
yeah, you have
And
to.
and it's
Love is a
sometimes
choice.
Yep.
Love's a choice. Joy is a choice. Peace is a choice. Forgiveness is a choice.
Yeah, and it's not always easy to make that choice, but once you do,
Yeah.
the feeling will come later.
Yeah.
But you've got to make the choice first, and it ain't easy sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's the hard part. It's just
Yeah.
getting to the choice.
Yeah. You have to choose to forgive that person. But how do you what does that, and you may be watching right now thinking, how do I choose to forgive somebody when they live right down the road or they're living in the same house as me or I work with them? How do I forgive them? You know, I feel like there's so much I feel like you could say to that. But if you don't forgive them, you're going to be bound to them the rest of your life. So whenever people come to office or people call us and we talk to them about forgiving, and forgiveness is not weakness. Forgiveness is actually strength. Actually, unforgiveness is weakness and unforgiveness is a lack of faith.
Yes.
Because what you're doing is you're trying to lord over that person by holding ill feelings over them over something maybe small, maybe big over your life. And you're like, well, Pastor, you don't know what I've been through. Well, I don't know what you've been through, but God does.
Yep.
So that's why you have to take it to the Lord. But what bitterness does is that if you remain bitter binds you to your past, but grace is what frees you from your past. It frees you to your future. And as long as you're unforgiving and you're bitter, you're never going to have that key to life, and you're never going to know what life is like because you've got unforgiveness in your heart. And so, we've I'm sure you've forgiven a lot of people, but how many people have forgiven you of stuff that you've done?
Yeah.
And man, people have forgiven me over stupid things I've done, and man, I've done a lot of stupid things before. I mean, we make mistakes every day,
Yeah.
but you have to forgive that person because I don't want to be tied to that person. And so when people tell us, well, I'm upset at my dad, I'm upset at my mom, well, they're 70, 60, 80, 90 years old and they're on their deathbed or we've not had a relationship for years, you better get it right with them and get it right with God, because whenever they pass and go into that ground, you're not going to get that time back and you're not going to make it right with that person.
No, no, you're right. And, at the end of the day, being a Christian, we've already got the ultimate example of
Yeah.
forgiveness. And even to the point of Jesus on the cross saying, "Forgive them, Father, they don't know what they're doing." I mean, well, we have the perfect example, but you've got to get in the word to see it
Yeah.
and to feel it, and then we act upon it. And we have to act upon it by making that choice. And like you said, there are, I can't speak for everybody on camera, of course, but there are those people that you're going to run into. It's going to be very hard to forgive, but you may be the only Bible they ever read. You may be the only light they ever see. And if you don't forgive them and step into that role and show them what it's like to be Christ-like,
Yeah.
they may miss their opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's, I'm trying to think of some really good examples of forgiveness. Um, there's a lady in our church named Trina Cannon, and I use this story a lot in different places when I talk to people. But Trina, her dad, I'm like shortening the story. Her dad was in a way abused by his dad growing up. And I believe she may watch this and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that they were from Florida. And so Trina's dad was up here. He was a very, great guy. He was very hard, very loving, but people knew who Trina's dad was. He was an iron fist, like he ruled, he reigned, but he was a man back in that day. And so there was one time to where his parents had died. Both of his parents had died, and they were here, and he had got saved at our church. And Trina tells the story so well. He got saved in our church, and the Lord basically told him to go to Florida, go to his dad's grave, and so he did. And so he drove all the way to Florida, and he sat at his dad's grave, and with tears coming down his eyes, he said, "Dad, I forgive you of everything. I forgive you."
Right.
And so he laid it all down there. Well, fast forward years and years and years later, Trina, uh, this is another great story of forgiveness. There was a guy, Trina had a little sister. She had a little sister, and the guy, she was in a car with a dude. They got in a wreck. I believe she was ejected immediately and she died on the spot. He got out and basically ran and hid. Well, they found out who he was. And so Trina tells the story about her and her mom and dad when, she was younger at this time. They had just lost family member, her sister, and she's got a lot of anger and upset. She's very bitter in her heart. And that lawyer looked at him and said, "Yep, we found the guy. We're going to arrest him. He's going to spend 30 to 60 days in jail." And Trina said she came up out of that chair and flew across that table and was going to punch that lawyer in the face. Like she said, I was that mad. And there was nothing she could do about it. And she lived with that her whole life, thinking that this guy had 36 days, whatever, for killing somebody.
Right.
And he walked out scot free. I don't know if I'll be honest with you, I don't know if I'd respond any differently.
Right.
People are like, I can't believe she did. I don't know if I'd do. I'd probably kill somebody too. But later on, this was probably about 2 years ago. She drives every day past this guy's house. And she said, I prayed for this guy every day, but more I prayed for him, things just started to change in my heart. She said, the Lord said, I want you to stop by and see this guy. She's like, God, I am not doing that. He said, I want you to go stop and see this guy. He sits out in front and rocks in his chair every day, guy that killed his sister as the boyfriend. And she stops one day and she said, all right, I'll stop. She just goes up to the front and the guy kind of gives her a look and she says, you don't know who I am? And he said, no. And she said, my name's Trina Cannon. You killed my sister in a car wreck and you ran away. And, she said, I've been hurt at you for so long. She started crying, started weeping. She said, I just want you to know that I forgive you. And when she said that, he began to weep. And he said, you don't know how long I've been praying for you to come. I couldn't find you. He said, because I've been wanting to apologize to you. And so, like you just said, you don't know what that forgiveness will do to somebody, not just you,
Right.
but somebody else. She told me that and was weeping. And I told her, I said, Trina, you realize that you did exactly what your dad did. She said, wow, I didn't think about that.
Right.
So, but what it did, not just for her, but what it did for this person, that this person had lived with this their whole life. And so, I don't know. God doesn't want people bound in their unforgiveness by their hurt because he wants them to heal. He wants them to rediscover their gifts and their passions and their calling. God, because you've been hurt doesn't mean that God's calling upon your life is dead. That means that maybe this is just a part of the story for you to grow up in.